All right, so today's goal is to build a TV app. And we're going to do a collection view inside of it as well, just to show you the end product first. This is what we're going to be ending up with. So that's the tvOS simulator. It's a 1080p device. And we're going to see here is we're going to have a home page with two views. So it's our little TV weather app. We're going to view real-time weather from a website called forecast.io, and we'll be able to retrieve data for 5 cities, so Toronto, San Francisco, Montreal, Vancouver, and New York City. And starting off with the collection view, this is what we're going to see. So we'll have Toronto, Montreal, San Francisco, Vancouver, New York City. Click on any one of them. So Vancouver, for example, we'll see that it's clear and 35 degrees Fahrenheit. And hit OK or cancel. And we'll go back. Now, with the TV, you can't really click on anything. Right? Nothing works here. You can only use the keyboard to simulate a lot of things because it has its own special remote. And to be able to play with that remote, you can go to Hardware and say Show Apple TV Remote. And this is your remote right here. It has a large swiping area, which is a bit challenging to work with. If you wanted to do touch, for example, you can press down on it and it did the selection. But swiping, you have to hold down the Option key on your keyboard. Be able to swipe up and down. Right, so you can select other things and then click on it. So it is a bit of a trick to get used to. Now you want to go back, you hit Menu, puts you in the previous page. You want to go back to your home screen, back to the home screen on the device itself, you hit the little TV button here, and you can go there. And so if I wanted to go to the other weather option, which we're going to look at as well, clicking on that, we're going to have a little split view with the same concept. And be able to select Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, San Francisco, New York City. Right, if I choose San Francisco, it'll show me San Francisco's weather, right, at 47 degrees Fahrenheit and clear. And so we're going to use images. You can grab those off the internet or the course website, and we're going to use URLs from forecast.io. So to begin, we're going to start off with creating a new project. So it'll be tvOS and single application. And we'll hit next. And it'll be my weather TV app. And it'll be in Swift, and give it a home. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our storyboard. We're going to create out the entire storyboard first. You notice that there's no launch screen here, so it just jumps directly into the app. So the way you design apps for the TV is different than you do for the iPhone, especially since you have no touch capability directly onto a TV screen. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start by just getting our UI up and running. So I'll start with a little label. Just give a title. And you notice how small it is. Kind of reminds you of the iPad and how small the labels were when you were playing with those. And I'll put the title here as My TV Weather App. And if you want to change the font, you're kind of forced into specific font styles to try and meet with Apple's design and consistency requirements. But you can change them. So I could switch over to custom or system, for example. And if I want to increase the font size, I can go ahead and do so, in case you were struggling with that. Now I'll add 2 buttons for the home page. Notice the button looks different from what we're accustomed to seeing on an iPhone. All right, let's copy and paste. And we'll just say, for the first one, view weather. And the second one, we'll say, view weather using collection view. And we'll have to play with the font. And we'll start by adding a new view controller that we'll segue into. So as a typical iPhone response is to add a new view controller to the screen, you can do the same thing with a TV app as well. With this particular view, we're going to put a collection view over it. So I'm going to search for a collection view. Not a controller, but just a collection view. And I'll stretch it out to be the entire size of the screen. And in the document view, you'll see that we have collection view cell. We're going to customize our collection view cell to have that image logo and label. And we'll also, when we're ready for it, we'll bring in the split view controller when we're ready for it. But for now, we'll just start with the collection view. And to do that, we're going to bring in a bunch of files. So we're going to start by bringing in, by saying file, or right-click and saying new file. All right, so I'll do a tvOS Cocoa Touch class. We'll start with NS object, and this one will be called city details. So we city details.swift. This object is going to handle our JSON parsing. It's going to have the names of the file names of our images, the names of our cities, and the URLs that we want to go to retrieve the real-time weather data. We'll hit next, give it a home. The next file we're going to add, so a new file, is tvOS Cocoa Touch class. And this will be a view controller. So I'm going to call it weather2 view controller. Okay, and give it a home. And the third file we'll add for now is, again, Cocoa Touch class. And this one will be a collection view cell. So UI collection view cell. I'm going to call it featured collection view cell. And give it a home. And I'm also going to create some groups to organize my files. So let's see here, we'll have classes. We'll have view controllers. We'll have images, which we'll bring in now. And storyboards. And we'll just move our files into the correct locations. There, now all of our stuff's organized a bit better. All right, so what we're going to do is now we're going to bring our images in. So I'm going to right-click on images, say add files to my TV weather app, and you're going to navigate to where your images are. Montreal.jpg. I have New York City.jpg, San Fran.jpg, Toronto.jpg, and Vancouver.jpg. And making sure that copy items if needed is checked. Hit add. So now I have all my image files. All right, so now we're going to move our attention to citydetails.swift and implement all of our JSON parsing and setting up our details for all of the cities that we're going to implement for this weather app. So first thing we'll do is we'll define an array. So we'll say let cities equal, and it'll just be the file names. I'm not going to go with shortcutting the images directly, just going to type out the file names directly. So toronto.jpg, and then the next one will be montreal.jpg. The next one will be vancouver.jpg. Next will be sanfran.jpg, and finally nyc.jpg. And the next array will just list out the city names themselves. So we'll say let city names equal, and then just Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, San Francisco, and finally New York City. All right, the next array we're going to create are a set of URLs that we're going to use to retrieve weather forecast information from each of these 5 cities. So I'm going to say, so I'm actually going to copy and paste them in because they're super long. And I'll show you where I got them from so you can actually go ahead and create your own developer account and retrieve them yourself for any city you want. So these are the 5 URLs for the 5 different cities above. And I retrieved them from a website called forecast.io, which actually ended up being darksky.net. And so as a developer, you can get an API key and you can retrieve whatever URLs you want for the different cities of the world that you would like to create an app for like this for. All right, so this third and final array has all of our URLs that we need to retrieve JSON data for parsing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of strings. And all we want to do from our forecast is retrieve the temperature and what the results are outside. So cloudy, sunny, fair, so on. So I'm going to say var title is equal to empty, var summary equals empty. And we're actually going to extend them as strings just to be thorough. And so title will have our temperature, summary will have how the weather actually is outside. And now our next step is to actually retrieve our data from JSON. So we're actually going to create a method called func get data from JSON. We're going to pass in an argument called selected of type int. No returns. And so this method, similar to the last time around, we are going to, for the last app, we did JSON parsing to retrieve data from our own personal website using PHP and MySQL. But here, what we're going to do is we're going to use an existing API and just go ahead and jump in and retrieve the data. All right, so we'll start off. by getting the URL we need. There. So we'll say if let URL equals ns URL string. There. We're going to pass in city lat long of selected. So we'll get our URL object. Now what we'll do is we'll retrieve the data from the web and as ns data. So we'll say if let data equals ns data contents of URL as URL. Now we'll do a little do catch statement. So we'll say do, and I'll start with the catch. We'll do our parsing afterwards. So we'll say catch let error as ns error. And what we'll do here is we'll let title and summary be our error message and what the error is. So what we're going to do is when we call this method in our collection view and in our table view, we're going to let the error message appear if no temperature or no data for that forecast is available. So we'll say title equals a JSON parsing error has occurred. And summary will be error.description. All right, so we got our error handling out of the way. Now let's go ahead and parse our data. So we'll say let parsed equal try JSON serialization dot JSON object with data, and our options will be JSON serialization dot reading options dot allow fragments. All right. At this point, we have JSON data. Now, the error we're getting right now is because I'm not casting as data with a capital D. There. Now it's just a warning that's unused. So we'll fix that in a moment. Now we can go ahead and retrieve our data. And the data we're getting back here is a large amount of data for that one city because we're not just getting current forecasts, we're getting forecasts from like the next 14 days. We're getting like dew point, air pressure, temperature, all kinds of stuff. So we're going to narrow it down to just a couple of things that we're going to retrieve. And again, what we're getting back is an array of dictionaries, which is actually in this case an array of dictionaries because we have an array and then we also have a dictionary which specifies a dictionary of today, tomorrow, and so on. So there's a whole slew of stuff that we're getting back. So we'll start with just trying to extract 2 items. That's all we want. So we just want to get the dictionary called currently. All right, and then we'll get the subdictionary from it, which is just temperature and summary. That's all we want. So we'll say let new dict equal parsed as dictionary or ns dictionary. All right. So now it's a dictionary, and we're just gonna pull out. Actually, it's an array of dictionaries. So now we're gonna pull out just a city forecast. We'll say let city forecast equal new dict question mark of currently as ns dictionary. All right, so at this point, we have the dictionary we need, city forecast, which has our current details, which is all we care about for this exercise. So we just want the temperature and we just want the summary. So we're going to say title equals, and we're going to put in a lot of optional stuff here because when we go ahead to print this out in the alert box, we want to avoid all the optional and in round brackets the real data that we want. So you're going to see a few extra things here that you might wonder why. So first I'll say in quotes slash and then in round brackets city forecast exclamation mark of temperature. Closing that, closing the square, throw another exclamation mark in, and there. And the reason we're putting these extra optional unwrapping in is because if we were to just take this data as is, we print it out to an alert view or to a label, we see that word optional in the print. So we're just trying to clear that up right now. And for summary, we're going to do the same thing. So equals opening a slash, round bracket, city forecast, exclamation mark of, and this time summary. Exclamation mark. And now you're probably wondering, why am I using temperature? Why am I using summary? Why am I using currently? These are all actual tags from JSON for this particular weather service. They have a ton of other ones. You could probably put a breakpoint in and step into here, and you can probably see the other tags yourself as well. All right, and at this point, we have our city details object all done. All of our JSON parsing's done. Now all that's left is to throw this data into a collection view and get it to display our city information. So we have all of our stuff here, all of our images. We started creating our storyboard stuff, and now what we're going to do is we're going to link everything together. So we're going to jump back to main storyboard and finish off what we have. So in this case, what we want to do is it's kind of tough to see in the corner of this collection view. We want to stretch that out. Maybe that's a good size. We want to keep it in the corner. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to throw an image into here and a label into here. So I'm going to start with an image. I'll stretch it out. Not looking for perfection, but and a label. I'll stretch that out as well. Now, we've got our cell, individual cell going for the collection view. Let's start casting stuff and start connecting whatever we can connect from now. So start with highlighting view controller, the yellow circle. I'm going to subclass this to weather2 view controller and create my segue from the button to this view controller, holding out control, drag, and present modally. And now if I click on the cell itself, I'm actually going to rely on the document view just to be sure. So collection view cell, I'm going to subclass that to featured collection view cell. And furthermore, I'm going to give it a reuse identifier. So I'm going to click on attributes, and reuse identifier will be featured cell. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll switch over to our weather2 view controller, and we'll start coding up the the collection view itself. And you're going to find the collection view is similar in some regards to the table and to the picker, and in other regards it's complex. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by bringing in our data source and delegate for Weather2 view controller for the collection view. So I'm going to say UI view controller, comma, UI collection view delegate, and UI collection view data source. Now before I actually go to the data source, you notice that there's a delegate flow layout, which is actually another nice one to bring in to really customize the collection view, but I'm actually leaving it out on purpose because presently it doesn't autocomplete the methods that I want in this exercise. I want my cells to be side by side as well as up and down. Like I want to have a proper grid. But if I autocomplete the flow layout here, it will bring in other methods that will not work nicely with what I want to go with. So I'm actually going to leave that on purpose and just go with collection view data source. There it is. Otherwise, that third delegate's a nice one to bring in too. Now, let's define our city details variable here. So we'll say let city data equal city details instantiated. And let's create an IB outlet for our collection view. So we'll say at IB outlet var collection. We'll call it collection view 1 extends UI collection view. Exclamation mark. And we'll define our reuse identifier. So we'll say let reuse identifier equal featured cell. Now there are three methods actually that we need, and unfortunately autocomplete will not be our friend on this. So these methods will help us in adjusting our look and feel for the collection view to be what we want here. And they're not necessary. You can actually get away with not using them. So if you have trouble, you can comment them out until you see the proper definition, maybe in the Apple docs or whatnot. But we'll start with this first function. So we'll say func collection view. And let's see if I can get some autocomplete action going here, but I'll start typing and see how it goes. So collection view, UI collection view, comma layout, collection view layout, UI collection view layout, comma minimum inter item spacing for section at index, and then section colon int. And it's supposed to return a CG float. Now the CG float we're going to return is 50 pixels, so say return 50. Now what this method does is it puts in some spacing between items. So between items that are side by side. We're going to do the same thing again. And in fact, now that this is nice, no issues, wasn't misspelled, I'm going to copy and paste this and change this to minimum line spacing for section at index. So inter item will change to the word line and also return 50. All right, the third method we'll need is to add some edge insets between items. Again, this is also for flair, for look and feel, just to make it look like it's easy on the eyes, essentially. So this one will be func collection view. Again, collection view extends UI collection view, and then comma layout, collection view layout, extends UI collection view layout, and then inset for section at index, section :int, and this will return UI edge insets. And so we're going to return a new UI edge insets object. So we'll say return UI edge insets. And you'll see that it's trying to add some insets for top, left, bottom, and right of each individual cell in the collection view. I'm just going to put 0.0 for top. Left will be 50. So 50.0. Bottom will be 50.0. And right will be 0.0. Actually, rather, right will be 50.0, but bottom will be 0. And you can play with these values, fine-tune them as you see fit. So these three methods play with the look and feel, whereas you have a lot of flexibility. If you look at Netflix, for example, and how beautiful their collections view look, they've invested a lot of time in methods like these to get that look and feel just right. All right, so that was the hard part, getting these methods to up and running and properly written out. Now for our conventional methods that will allow us to actually display the items in the collection view. So first thing we'll do is specify number of sections. So this method is going to type in number of sections, hit autocomplete, and return 1. And this method is useful for saying how many collection views we're going to have inside our collection view. And if you think about Netflix, you have like row upon row upon row of collection views that swipe left and right, so you can see the different genres of movies, previous movies, anything you've downloaded, recommendations, all kinds of options, right? So there's a ton of collection views, right? So we're going to just go with one simple little collection view, so we have one section. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to specify how many items are in this one section. Right? So similar concept to a table view. So we'll say number of items in section. And there's two possibilities for this. One is that we could have no data and we want to return 0 in that case. Or we could be successful in downloading our forecasting info. So we want to be able to say if collection view equals self.collectionView1, right? Because we have multiple collection views. Then we'll return city data.cities.count. So length of our array, which is really 5 cities. Now the next method, similar concept to self-road index path from a table view, but we're going to write one for the collection view. So I'm going to say sell for row at, sell for item at. That's better. So now we want to return either return a generic UI collection view cell instantiated, or we're going to use our custom featured cell object. But to do that, we're going to check to see if this is the correct collection view. So we'll say if collection view equals self.collectionView1. Then we'll go ahead inside and we'll configure our cell. But we want to use our custom featured cell. So we'll say let cell extending featured collection view cell equal collection view dot DQ reusable cell with identifier. Our identifier is our reuse identifier featured, or reuse identifier rather, for index path as index path as featured collection view cell. Now we haven't configured anything, so we're going to have to switch over to featured cell in a moment and actually add some items and configure it, but I'll just say return cell. We're going to leave this space open here for a moment because we're going to switch files. And we're going to configure our featured cell object and then come back here and complete this area. And before we go, we'll just fix a little typo here. This should be index path. There, now errors go away. Now we're going to switch over to featured collection view cell. And right now it's empty, but we're going to add our outlets first. So we'll say IB outlet var featured image extends UI image view exclamation mark. And then the second one is IB outlet var LBL city extends UI label exclamation mark. Now there's a number of methods we could bring in to customize the look and feel of each individual cell. I'm just going to bring in one that allow us to raise the cell when it's in focus. Otherwise, push it back so we can tell which cell is highlighted. Because by default, you can't tell which cell is highlighted unless you do this one method. So I'm going to say override func did update focus. And that's what we need. Now, we'll put an if statement here. We'll say if self.isFocused. Then we'll say self.featured image dot adjust image when ancestor focused is equal to true. Else self.featured image dot adjust image when ancestor focus equals false. So this will raise or lower the featured image itself for the particular particular cell if it's highlighted, if it's in focus. So we know which one we can click to say, hey, I'm going to click on Toronto and click on Vancouver, which one I correctly click on. So that's what this method is good for. All right, so now we have enough to try and run and see if our code actually works. So before we do that, let's switch over to main storyboard. We have a few things to collect up still. So I'm just going to bring in my inspector, my connections inspector. And because featured cell is already highlighted, we already subclassed it. I'm going to bring in featured image, connect it to my image view. Now, because of my limited real estate on the screen, I'm going to use the document view to connect things up. LBL city goes here. And then clicking on collection view, data source and delegate go to my view controller. So weather2 view controller gets data source, delegate, and finally, clicking on view controller itself, we should see collection view 1, which will connect to our collection view. Okay, so we have one thing left to do before we run, is going back to weather2 view controller. We created the method, but we didn't complete it. So now we're going to complete it. So inside self or item at, we're going to say let image file name equal city data dot cities of index path dot row, and then we can populate our cell. So we say cell dot featured image dot image is equal to UI image named image file name. Finally, cell dot lbl city dot text is equal to city data dot city names of index path dot row. And now we have enough to run this. Okay. And there you go. Toronto, Montreal, San Francisco, Vancouver, New York City. Clicking on or pressing enter doesn't do anything yet because we still have to implement that method for did select item. All right, one last thing to do for the collection view is to select an item and see what happens. So I'm going to add another method here. Did select item at index path. What we're going to do here is we're going to run our JSON code. So our JSON method. So we're going to say city data dot get data from JSON, and we're going to pass in our index path. So index path dot row. So that'll be the row number. So it'll know which cell to retrieve and which city to retrieve. So by running this method, we have gone through JSON, we've gone to the internet, we retrieved our information. It's there for the taking. It's inside citydata.title and citydata.summary. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a little alert box, which actually in the TV world is not a little alert box. It's actually the full screen. And we're going to get that alert to display. So we'll start off with let alert controller equal UI alert controller, and passing in title. So title will be city data dot summary, and message will be city data dot title, and preferred style will be dot alert. We'll put a little OK button or a cancel button. So we'll say like let cancel action equal UI alert action. Title will be cancel. Style will be UI alert. Sorry, dot cancel. Handle will be nil. It will join the cancel action to the alert controller. So we'll say alert controller dot add action for cancel action. And finally, we'll present it. So self.present alert controller, comma, animated is true. And now you can run it again, and you should see the alert box. You see your actual real-time forecasting information for the app. Okay, so I'm going to run my Weather TV app. Click on Vancouver. And you see partly cloudy at 38 degrees Fahrenheit. You can try San Francisco. Clear at 51 Fahrenheit. Montreal. Clear at 7 Fahrenheit. And you get the idea. So now we've basically done the collection view side of things. The next part is to actually take this and do the split view for a table view for the TV app.